Hello everyone and welcome to my evaluation of orange juice. I did this for a 422 course, which is a sensory evaluation course, and let's jump in. Orange juice is a staple food in American diets. It's often consumed with breakfast foods like bacon and pancakes and things along those natures, but also later on in the day. Our group decided to do it because we all really liked orange juice and we thought it would be a fun product to test. Um, to decide on our attributes, we looked at a couple of different studies to kind of look and see where people had looked before so we could base an idea off of that. The objective of our project was to see if there were differences between attributes in different brands of orange juice, and we hypothesized that there would be a difference between the attributes in different brands, and that then our null hypothesis would be that there was no significant difference between the specific attribute in a different brand of orange juice. What we chose for our attributes were sweetness, bitterness, orange aroma, orange flavor, and orange color. So what were our samples? We used Tropicana, Ocean Spray, Minute Maid, and Simply Orange. And we went to Dismore's and picked them out of the self-serve aisle, so they're in little self-serve bottles somewhere between 13 to 18 ounces. Um, we decided to choose our samples from the back of the display because it would help minimize the oxidation from light. And then we went back to our apartment where we were doing our tasting and we put them in the fridge so they would be cold when served, and then we served them in Dixie cups that were filled about 3/4 of the way full. So our panelists consisted of 4 women ranging in age from 19 to 34 and ranging in consumption as well. Um, of the products. So some panelists drink orange juice 3 to 4 times a week, where other panelists like myself drink it a couple of times a year. Our training took about 2 hours, and the standards were made by us to determine the intensity of the attributes, and we'll see a table in the next slide describing those. But basically what we did is we drank each standard and we talked about where we thought we would put it on a 15 centimeter line scale, and that's where we decided to do that, decided where the standard would be. So for sweetness, we used a 20% solution of sugar and water, and we ranked that about a 12.8 on the 15 centimeter line scale. For bitterness, we used cocoa powder and water. For orange aroma, we smelled a really nice candle. For orange flavor, we drank Emergency, which surprisingly has a very, very strong orange flavor at 12.8. For orange color, we forgot to grab a paint swatch while we were at the store, so we ended up using a scrambled egg and 1 dollop of applesauce because that came out to the closest orange color that we could look and like kind of see where the orange juice kind of fit in somewhere in there. So that's why it's a little bit low at 10.6. For the type of test that we did, we did a quantitative descriptive analysis test, and again, like I've said, we used the 15 centimeter line scale. Each panelist had a different serving order, but not all of the serving orders were represented, so there's a little bit of error in our test that way. And the test was done in Replicate, so we had our first test, and then we took a break because we needed to cleanse our palates and like not worry about overloading our senses, and then came back and did it again. So for the analysis of the test, we use ANOVA and Fisher LSD. And ANOVA basically tells whether or not there is a difference between panelists and the treatments, and then the Fisher's LSD will tell us where the difference is. So for our variables, our independent variables, we decided were the brands of orange juice and the panelists that were drinking the orange juice, and our dependent attribute, or our dependent variable would be the attributes. So sweetness, bitterness, orange aroma, orange flavor, and orange color. In our ANOVA results, we found that um, there are significant differences between panelists in everything except for color. So that would mean that we would probably want to train our panel a little further so we wouldn't be as different. And then in our orange juice, we saw that there were significant differences between bitterness and color. So in our LSD, we can see that Our sweetness, the treatments were all not significantly different, so they were all pretty similar. In bitterness, Ocean Spray and Minute Maid were significantly different from Simply Orange and vice versa, but Tropicana was similar to both of them, to both the sets. In Orange Aroma, again, there was no significant differences between samples. Same for orange color or orange flavor, and then for orange color, Ocean Spray was significantly different than Minute Maid, Tropicana, and Simply Orange. Minute Maid was significantly different than Ocean Spray, Tropicana, and that's it. Tropicana was significantly different than Ocean Spray and Minute Maid, while Simply Orange was only significantly different than Ocean Spray. For our correlations, we saw that the most positive was the orange color and bitterness, and so as high intensity of color increases, high intensity of bitterness also increases. Our negative correlations were orange aroma and sweetness, so as the intensity of one goes up, the other goes down. So if it's more sweet, it's less orange aroma, and vice versa. Our Biot plot shows variance between brands and attributes. So the further apart they are, the more the negative the correlation, like aroma and sweetness, and the closer they are, the more positive the correlation, like color and bitterness. So we can see that Ocean Spray, which is sample 848, is very bitter and has a high intensity of color, while Tropicana is just sweet. So some of the studies that we looked at supported some of our findings. So in a study done by Bacalupi, it showed that UV exposure affected citrus aroma, and so the more exposure to UV light, the more cause for off flavors to form. So the intensity of our orange juice may have undergone this during storage, and so the intensity of orange aroma may have been less than it was originally. Excuse me. In a study done by Kim, orange flavor was tested in Korea, and it showed that the more orange flavor, the more people liked it. So it was a preference test, which is comparable to most of the world, but our study didn't focus on liking, we focus more on specific attributes. And then in a study done by Rega and others, pulp in orange juice is associated to flavor release, so the more pulp, the more fresh orange character there was. And since our orange juice was pulp free, we might have had less of that character due to, again, the lack of pulp. So in conclusion, we saw that the differences were between bitterness and orange color, so the null hypothesis could be rejected for those two attributes, but not for sweetness, orange flavor, and orange aroma. And I would say that our panel would probably need to be a little bit more trained because we had a lot of significant differences between us, but again, that could be fixed with more training. So here are our references, and thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.